This is the corrections for quiz number 2. And again, it's kind of a different type of quiz in a number of ways. First of all, different things were worth different number of points. Like for the matching, every answer was worth 2 points apiece. For the types of triangle, there are 2 types for each one. Each type was worth 6 points apiece. These here were worth 5 points apiece, and the true and false were worth 3 points apiece. It adds up to 100 points, but there are different amount of points for each thing, okay? But the main thing you have to worry about is correcting it correctly. Now, another thing that's different is in the matching, some things are used more than once, and some things aren't used at all. You all are used to matchings that are like an elimination. Once you use something, you cross it out, you don't have to use it again. Well, in this one, you had to use them again. And some had more than one answer to it. Like the first one had 7 answers to it. That's why there were 7 blanks. They go, well, how could it have 7 answers to it? Because there were 7 simple closed curves. And on the second one, there were 6 polygons. So again, a matching does not have to be eliminate, get rid of. It just has to be the right answer. And sometimes there's more than one right answer. So anyway, looking at the matching, like I told you in the last one, if you get something wrong, you have to write the question and you have to show not just the letter of the right answer, but what the letter stood for. By the way, if you only got like 1 or 2 of them wrong, you only have to show the letter and what those stood for. You don't have to do the ones that you got right, only what you got wrong. So on number 1, it says a simple closed curve. The very first one at the top, A, was a simple closed curve because it's got an 8 side. It starts and stops at the same point. So it's a simple closed curve. Number C was a simple closed curve because, again, it starts and stops at the same point. Whoops. And it never intersects. Number D was a simple closed curve. And again, it starts and stops at the same point and never intersects. E was a simple closed curve, starts and stops at the same point, never intersects. Okay, F was a simple closed curve, starts and stops at the same point, never intersects. Okay, H was a simple closed curve, starts and stops at the same point and never intersects. I was a simple closed curve, and by the way, you don't have to draw this exact. I don't think I could draw it exact, and I'm the one who drew it. You just have to make sure it starts and stops at the same point and never intersects. Okay, and J was also a simple closed curve because it starts and stops at the same point and never intersects. So again, there were 7 of them. A, C, D, E, F, H, I, and J. That seems like 8 of them. Yeah, there were 8 of them, not 7. All right, so anyway, that was what you needed for the first one. All right, by the way, I think I only gave, I gave you 8 blanks, so you needed 8 answers. Now for number 2, all right, excuse me, it says polygons, and you'll notice that all the polygons here, A, C, E, F, H, and J, were already up here as types of simple closed curves. So if you drew them once, you don't have to draw it again, but you do have to put the letter again. Again, a polygon is a simple closed curve. That's why all of these were up here, because polygons are simple closed curves, but they're made up of line segments. So that would be A, C, E, F, H, and J. The only 2 simple closed curves up here that are not polygons were D, because it was like an oval and it wasn't made up of line segments, and I, because it's that weird figure and it's not made up of line segments. So when you talk about polygons, all of these were polygons because they were simple closed curves made up of line segments. Now, the rest of these, most of you got right, they were pretty easy. A triangle is a three-sided polygon, that was F. A quadrilateral was a four-sided polygon, that was E. A pentagon was a five-sided polygon, that was C. A hexagon was a six-sided polygon, that was J. An octagon is an eight-sided polygon, that's a pretty sad-looking octagon. I can't draw that well, but if you counted the sides, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sides, that was an octagon. And finally, H was a decagon. It had 10 sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 sides. And again, these were all special types of polygons. So all of these were these up here because they were polygons, all right? So again, a strange type of matching for some of you because you use some things more than once and some things you never used at all. By the way, the ones you didn't use were B and G. Why not B? Because even it's a number 8, and even though it starts and stops at the same point, it intersects, so it's not a polygon or a simple closed curve. And G was a letter C, and it's open, so it's not a simple closed curve or a polygon either. So B and G you don't use at all, and A, C, E, F, H, and J you use 3 times. Once here, and one of these over here. So again, get used to it that a matching doesn't have to be a process of elimination. It just has to be what's true. Now, the next thing caused some people trouble because it said name each triangle 2 ways, and a lot of people just named it 1 way. Like the first one right here, a lot of people knew it was equilateral, okay, because the 3 sides are congruent. And how do you know the 3 sides are congruent? They got lines through them. So a lot of people said equilateral, and in the other blank, they put, can't spell, they put the word triangle. But no, it's also an acute triangle, okay? Because the angles are all less than 90 degrees. So it's not just equilateral, it's acute and equilateral. Some put acute and didn't put equilateral, some put equilateral and didn't put acute. By the way, acute is the type of angle it is by angles, equilateral is the type of triangle it is by its sides. Now the next one, okay, looked like this. And again, a lot of people knew that was obtuse because it had that one obtuse angle. But it's not just obtuse, it is an obtuse triangle, but it's also a scalene triangle. By the way, a lot of you who even got it right spelled it wrong, but I don't take off for spelling. And it's scalene because none of the sides are congruent. And how do you know none of the sides are congruent? Because none of them have little line segments through them. So this one is obtuse and scalene. And again, you need both, not just one of them. And each one was worth 6 points. And finally, the last one you had looked like this. And again, a lot of you knew it was a right because of that right angle right here. It's a right triangle, but it's also an isosceles triangle. And why is it an isosceles triangle? Because 2 sides are congruent. So again, when you classify a triangle, there are 2 ways to name it, by sides and by angles. By sides, isosceles, by angles, right. By sides, scalene, by angles, obtuse. By sides, equilateral, by angles, acute. And again, each time I give you one of those and I give you 2 blanks, one of those blanks is not for the word triangle. One of those blanks is for what type it is by angles, and one of those blanks is what type it is by sides. Now, the next thing is the only math that you had to do in here. I gave you a triangle. First of all, I gave you a triangle that looked like this, and I told you that angle X was 28 degrees, and I told you angle Z was 130 degrees. And I asked you to find angle XYZ, which is this one up here. So again, what I need to know is that the three angles of a triangle always add up to 180. So if I know two of them, I add the two I know together, is 158, and then I take 180 minus 158. And when I subtract, I get a remainder of 22 degrees. Sorry about that. Oh, I can't read. This says 23, not 28. I thought the answer key was wrong, but it was, I can't read without my glasses. So try this. 130 and 23, 0 plus 3 is 3, 3 plus 2 is 5, 1 plus nothing is 5. That's 153. When I subtract, I get a remainder of 27. Much better with the right answer when you have the right measurement. Sorry about throwing you off for a minute. But the important thing here is you have to add the two angles you know together, take that sum and subtract it from 180, will tell you the missing angle. The next one here was a right isosceles, and I know that because it's got the 90-degree angle and two sides congruent, and one of the angles was 90 degrees. I didn't even have to tell you that, you should have known that, but I did tell it to you. And another angle was 45 degrees. By the way, this was M, L, and N. And this time I wanted to find the measure of angle MNL. That's this one up here. And again, the same thing. Add the two angles that you know together is 135, and then subtract that from 180. And then when you subtract, you get an answer of 45 degrees. So the missing angle here is 45 degrees. And again, you need the right work. And again, the work is when you know two angles of a triangle and you're looking for the third, add the two you know together, subtract from 180, gives you the one that you don't know. The next one was this one. And this was A, B, and C. And this was 60 degrees, and this was 60 degrees. And I asked you to find this one. So I need to find angle ACB. So once again, add the two you know, 60 plus 60 is 120, and subtract the sum from 180, and that'll tell you the one that's left. And the one that's left is 60 degrees, okay? So the right answer is 60 degrees. The right work is to add and then subtract. I was pleased most of you understood how to find the missing angle. To me, that's the one thing that's most important out of all of this stuff, is know how to find a missing angle of a triangle. Then the last two, you had a 50-50 chance of guessing them right. Some people get confused because they sound the same, but they're totally different. Number 15 says every rectangle is a square. And every rectangle is a square is a false statement, because you can draw a rectangle that's not a square. This is a rectangle, and it's definitely not a square. It's a rectangle because it has all 90-degree angles. It's not a square because it doesn't have all sides congruent. These sides are obviously way bigger than those. And to be a square, it has to have all 90-degree angles, and it has to have all sides congruent. So false, every rectangle is not a square. Every square is a rectangle is true, because to be a square, you need all 90-degree angles, and that's what makes it a rectangle. So a square is actually a type of rectangle. So every square is a rectangle is a true statement. So again, the way you say it makes a giant difference. Every rectangle is a square is false because you can draw a rectangle that's not a square. Every square is a rectangle is true because you can't draw a square without 90-degree angles, and if it has 90-degree angles, then it's a rectangle. So that's the answers to this. all right, you have to do your corrections on this, and then I'm gonna give you a review test, okay, on all of this stuff that I want you to complete by Wednesday and turn in the answers to. By the way, we will be taking a break for the Easter holidays, all right, so this review test is the last thing you'll have to do, and I'd really like it in by, the answers in by Wednesday. So take your time and be careful with it. Use your notes to help you figure it out, but make sure you understand the things on the review test.